Have you ever caught yourself acting one way when you're alone, but then completely different when you're in a group? Well, today we are diving deep into the invisible social forces that are constantly pulling our strings, shaping our thoughts, our actions, and yeah, even who we think we are. It all kicked off with this viral TikTok. Someone overheard a group of, let's call them friends, literally plotting to exclude this woman, Marissa Mez, from her own birthday party. The video somehow got to Marissa, and instead of just being crushed, she turned that moment of social pain into a whole movement. She started No More Lonely Friends and began setting up meetups all over the country for people who just wanted to connect. It's such a powerful modern story that gets right to the absolute heart of what we're talking about today. And this really brings us to our big question for today. Just how much of who you are is actually shaped by other people? It's a huge question. To even begin to figure that out, we've got to start by looking at the lens through which we see everyone else. So first up, our social goggles. We're going to start by looking inward, right? At how our own minds perceive and try to make sense of the wild social world that's all around us. Think of these as the social goggles we all put on every single day without even realizing it.
Okay, think about the last time you were late for something. You probably had a really good reason, right? The traffic was a nightmare, your alarm didn't go off, you blame the situation. But when someone else is late to meet you, where does your mind go first? So often, we don't think about their situation. We jump straight to their character. We think, they're so irresponsible.
This super common tendency actually has a name. It's called the fundamental attribution error. It's kind of like our brain's default setting. We attribute other people's actions to who they are, their personality, while we usually give ourselves a pass by blaming the situation. And it's so crucial to know about this bias because it really shapes our first impression of basically everyone we meet. You know, this error is just one of many mental shortcuts that our brains use to get through the day. Stereotypes, they work in a really similar way. They let us make super quick judgments with very little info. It's efficient for sure, but as we all know, it can lead to some massive and often really harmful mistakes in how we see other people. Okay, so that's how we judge others. But what happens when we're the one being judged? Let's widen the lens a bit, from our own mind to the incredible power of the group. What happens when your own two eyes tell you one thing, but the entire room is telling you something completely different? All right, just take a look at this. It's a really simple test from a classic experiment by a guy named Solomon Asch. The question is, which line on the right matches the one on the left? The answer is obvious, right? It's clearly the one on the far right. But now, imagine you're in a room with 5 other people, and one by one, they all confidently say the wrong answer. What do? You might be thinking, oh, I'd stick to my guns, no problem. But Asch found that a shocking 35% of the time, participants knowingly gave the wrong answer just to conform with the group. That is the power of our deep-seated desire to be liked and to fit in. It can literally change what we say we see. Okay. So conforming on a simple line test, that's one thing. But what about something more serious? Let's raise the stakes. Would you follow an order from an authority figure if it meant you had to actually cause someone real pain? Well, this exact question led to Stanley Milgram's infamous obedience study. Participants were told by an experimenter in a lab coat to deliver stronger and stronger electric shocks to another person. Now, that person was just an actor pretending to be in pain, but the participant didn't know that. The results? They were just terrifying. A staggering 65% of participants went all the way to the maximum, 450-volt shock, which was labeled as lethal, simply because a person in a position of authority told them to. So the power of this situation is clearly immense. It's huge. So now, let's zoom out even further. Let's look at how we behave not just within our groups, but between them. Why is it so easy for us to divide the world into us and them? A lot of the answer seems to lie in something called social identity theory. Basically, a huge chunk of our self-esteem doesn't just come from our individual personality, but from the groups we belong to, our in-group. And to feel good about ourselves, we have this powerful, often unconscious drive to see our group as better than other groups, the out-group. In a classic study, the Robbers Cave experiment showed just how easy this is to spark and, importantly, how to fix it. First, researchers just created 2 random groups of boys at a summer camp, the Rattlers and the Eagles. Then, they made them compete against each other. Almost immediately, you had intense rivalry, trash talk, prejudice, the works. But then, the researchers created a problem that neither group could solve alone, like a broken water supply. They were forced to cooperate, and something pretty amazing happened.
Working toward that common goal completely dissolved the hostility. The lesson was crystal clear. Competition created conflict, but cooperation built bridges.
So, we've seen how we perceive others, how we conform to group pressure, and how we form these group identities. In our final section, we're going to see that all of this points to one fundamental truth about being human. We are absolutely wired for connection.
And you know the stakes here could not be higher. Get this, one landmark study found that social isolation, being disconnected from others, can be up to 6 times more deadly than smoking. That is not a metaphor. Our social connections are literally a matter of life and death. And it's also really important to understand the difference here. Social isolation is the objective fact of being alone. You just have few social ties. Loneliness, though, that's the subjective feeling of being isolated. You can be in a room packed with people and still feel intensely lonely. Both are damaging, for sure, but it's that feeling of loneliness that really causes the most distress. So what do we do? How do we fight this? Well, the psychology we've been talking about today actually gives us a roadmap. Building connection isn't about being the most popular person in the room. It's about joining groups based on things you actually care about. It's about being a reliable, trustworthy friend. And just like we saw in the Robbers Cave experiment, it's about actively seeking out cooperation over competition. It's about building a diverse web of social ties, just like Marissa Mays did with her #NoMoreLonelyFriends movement.
So, we've seen how easily we can fall into judgment errors, how easily we conform to the group, how easily we obey authority. But we've also seen that we have the power to overcome all that division through cooperation and connection. The situation is powerful, there's no doubt about it, but it doesn't completely define us. So the final question is, knowing all of this, what role will you choose to play?